Welcome everybody to the latest edition of Flight Club Reviews here on YouTube. I am Scott Hill, one of the original members of Flight Club. You can find us at flightclubict.com. We're here for a live review. Before I talk about what it is we are going to review today, I'm here on Google Hangouts with a couple gentlemen here. Let's get some introductions out of the way. Jamie, let's start with you.
Hey, how are you tonight or today, whenever you're watching this? Jamie Ballman, Flight Club ICT member, and excited to see what the hype on this one's about.
Jamie's one of our newer members, but he's been here live on YouTube with us a couple times already. But we have a new guest tonight, which is one of our original members of Flight Club, a stalwart of our organization. Jay, say hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jay Carey, and like Scott said, I am one of the original members of Flight Club. It's been quite the journey that Scott has taken us all on. Learned a lot over the last 5, going on 6 years now, and very excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to try a new product tonight. A new bourbon by Barrell Craft Spirits. Jamie, Jay, which one of you is going to hold up the bottle of the Barrell Craft Spirits 15-year bourbon?
Well, neither one of us are.
No.
Why not, guys? I mean, it's just a $225 bottle. Didn't we just all run out and grab one without any skepticism at all?
We are lucky enough to have a sample swap on this one.
Yeah, Jamie was kind enough to grab us a few samples. This is something we don't do very often here at Flight Club. Do tastings out of samples, but we'll start with this. A little bit of background about Barrell and my own skepticism. There's some Barrell products out there that I've absolutely loved. There's some Barrell products out there that I haven't loved that have really gotten some great fanfare. Jay, how about you? What's been your experience with Barrell over the years?
I haven't. It's not been a lot, to be honest. I think kind of even with this particular bottle at $225, all of their bottles are in that $80 to $120 price range, which I think kind of steers some people away from it because they're afraid to spend that kind of money, really not knowing what they're getting.
Yeah. Jamie, how about you? Have you been a fan of Barrell to date?
I like the Barrell stuff. To be honest, I think Magnus might be doing it better with the same two distilleries, but I have multiple Barrell whiskeys that are very exceptional, and I think we've all enjoyed those quite a bit, especially the sherry finish. So they definitely put out some good products.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of the Barrell whiskeys. You talked about two different distilleries. A lot of Barrell's bourbon products, and I think a lot of their whiskeys as well, come out of George Dickel in Tennessee. If it says Tennessee on the back of the label, it's probably Dickel. And if it says Indiana, it's MGP. Jamie, and I know you and I both have several bottles of each. Some of them I really love. Some of them I don't love so much. They've had some releases this year that I think have gotten some hit or miss reviews. And then they come out with this product. It's what do we know about this? It's a 15-year bourbon with a new label on it, silver label of Barrell Craft Spirits. Jamie, what else do we know about this one?
Which they do have one more. They have a Kentucky, which I don't know if anyone knows for sure who that distillery is. Obviously, Barrell does, and maybe some people do, but I think they got a pretty good non-disclosure on that one or something. I think there's whispers of Barton, but I shouldn't even say that because I don't know. So 15 years, and I believe it says all three on the label. So it's 3 different distilleries, all at least 15 years old, and it's with their new release. And the other 2 were a rum and extra aged whiskey. So that's everything I know about it. And Fred Minnick named it Whiskey of the Year.
Yeah, that's right. A new premium label and Whiskey of the Year by Fred Minnick. So it's got a lot going for it right now, and it's got a hefty price tag. We thought we'd review it and give you our thoughts on it, and we thought it might be helpful, even just for ourselves, to give this one a little bit of context. We thought we'd pull out something that's kind of been one of our perennial whiskeys of the year and kind of put it head to head. What are we trying tonight, guys?
Take it away, Jay.
Our 17 George T. Stag. So,
yeah, I've got a bottle. I've got my bottle right here. You have yours?
I don't. I put it up actually.
Yeah, I think this one is 129.2 if I poured the right one from 17. And if I look back, Jay, do I remember this being maybe number 2 on your 2017 list, maybe behind Four Roses, Al Young?
It was. It was absolutely.
And I think it was real high on my list as well. I know the 18 was number 1 on my list this year, and I think I like the 17 a little bit better than the 18 even. So it's a quality pour. It's one that we've scored here at Flight Club as kind of in that 4.5, 5 ballpark. So this is going to be a good showing here for the Barrell 15 if it can compete. So why don't we grab our George T. Stag, just take a quick nose and throw out some observations on it. I'm not trying to get a thorough review here, just trying to give us some context.
You dropped the Al Young remark there, how it was your number 1, and I really truly thought that probably would have been a better competition as far as since it's a blend, but I decided I wasn't that generous, so we decided not to do that one.
All right, we're cutting right now until we can get a couple samples of Al Young to put next to this. So. I mean, I think this has got a great nose. I mean, it's a 15-year, and that's part of also why we thought we'd compare it here to this Barrell 15. It's all Buffalo Trace. It's a little bit higher proof, and you get a little bit higher proof on the nose, but you definitely get that oak backbone with the baking spices. Really nice kind of brown sugar sweetness to it. It's a really good nose.
It's a very balanced nose. I don't think there's really one certain thing that just jumps out in your face.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's balanced with its fruit and its sweetness and its spice and its oak. There's a lot of those dark fruits and figs and those sorts of things in the background there.
I wish I had anything to add to that. You take all the nosy notes out of my mouth every time you do this.
Just nod and agree.
Yep, nod and agree.
Well, I went in for a taste, and I mean, it's as delicious as I remember it being. A lot of baking spice, certainly sweet, a lot more cinnamon up front on that palate, continuing into finish. Jay, you commented earlier on balance. I mean, balance carries through this whole thing.
It does very well.
And just that beautiful backbone of oak throughout this whole thing. I've said it on here before. I'm not a big fan of overaged bourbons, and for me, 15 years gets real close to that being overaged. This doesn't have any of that note whatsoever.
First sip in, but yeah, it's oakier than I remember. Not in a bad way. I mean, you know that it's going to be oaky. It's 15 years old, but yeah, it's potent on this one.
There is just a ton of fruit here. Dark fruit and raisin, some grape, cherry. This is one of those that, we talk about sometimes you could spend an hour with it and you could keep making references or tasting notes. You just keep going back to it. There's more and there's more and there's more. Well, does this hold up as you remember, as sort of that, one of your maybe top 5 of 2017? Somewhere in that kind of 4.5 to 5 kind of range on scores throughout on this. Is this kind of where you remember this being?
Absolutely, for sure. It's this is one that I go to. I've had this bottle a couple of years now. I go to it maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 times a year, and every time I go back to that bottle, it just reminds you of why it was scored so well.
Jamie, anything else?
Yeah, it's a great bottle, and like you said, we could sit here and pick out notes and taste this one all night long, and I'd be happy to do so. But Maybe we'll make a shorter video for once.
Well, let's get back to what we're here to sample, and that's the Barrell 15-year bourbon that's just come out. Jamie, I don't think you told me earlier, but what was the proof on this one?
I'm sorry.
Anybody remember?
Yeah, I think it's 105.1, if I remember correctly.
I just grabbed it on my phone, and that's exactly right, 105.1. So we are down significantly here in proof from this stag. So that is going to obviously impact what we perceive here. But like all the Barrell products to date, everything's been cast strength. So this one's not been diluted in any way. It's straight out of the blend at 105.1. So we ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
Yeah, and we knows this before we went live a little bit before Jay was able to hop on, and it was pretty clear that it was George Dickel, or quite a bit of George Dickel, but that's changed quite a bit even since sitting here. There's lots of baking spice on it now.
I still get right away the that George Dickel toasted marshmallow note that I get out of the older Dickel products.
I agree. I agree with that.
And it's got a little bit of fruit sweetness surrounding that. If you've had sort of that strawberry marshmallow or whatever that's inside some of the Valentine's Day chocolates or Christmas chocolates, it's reminding me a lot of that, because I'm getting some of that chocolate note and that kind of fruited marshmallow flavor.
I'm getting a bunch of cocoa or chocolate, almost like that you would dust something with on top of it.
Yeah, kind of chocolate dusting.
Yeah, even maybe there's a dark fruit, and I'm almost getting some. I don't want to say green apple, but I'm getting some sort of apple there on the nose as well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, there's a lot of fruit. I mentioned the strawberry marshmallow earlier. I'm getting some strawberry, some apple, maybe a little cherry.
Maybe like a caramel apple.
Yeah. There's some of that minerality there that I associate with Dickel as well. I'm really, I don't know if struggle's the right word, because I do like George Dickel products, but I'm struggling to get beyond some of these standard George Dickel notes that.
I can say it's a whole lot softer after touching the George Stag.
Yeah. There's some rye spice here, and I'm kind of getting the herbally end of rye spice. A little bit, there's some green kind of notes to it, some green herbal notes.
I think that's what he's talking about, the apple, like a green apple.
Yeah. Yep.
Taste?
Yeah, let's go in. I started with mentioning the Dickel influence on the nose. I feel that there's a Dickel influence throughout the palate and the finish too, but it's in this very interesting kind of weaving fashion. I started out on the palate picking up what I associate more as kind of the MGP kind of bourbon-like notes, and then I get that minerality kind of marshmallow kicking back in. And then there's some additional changes in the later end of the palate that seem to flow away from what I'm getting out of a Tennessee bourbon. And then they come back again on the finish. It just seems to have this nice weave in and out to it.
It's like there's a real heavy note of like a dusty leather boot.
There's more of that apple that Jay was talking about earlier.
I was gonna say I'm getting more of that apple on the palate for sure. And I don't know that that kind of strawberry carries over as much into the palate as it is on the nose, but it's very fresh. I mean, it's
The apple's almost right up front.
Is it a little bit of almost a sour apple to you guys?
Yeah.
I get like this fresh green apple up front, and then almost like an apple that fell off the tree and then sat there for 2 weeks on the ground.
Aged apple.
There's really nice baking spices throughout that palate.
Yeah.
Cinnamon, nutmeg. I'd say probably cinnamon's probably the most influential there.
Definitely, that's the first thing the first taste I took. I really got, you get that kind of green apple right at the beginning, and then it just moves really heavy into the cinnamon spice for sure.
It's got a fairly creamy palate. It's only 105 proof, so the proof in no way kind of shocks my palate. It's fairly easy to drink.
Are you guys getting any real additions at the finish?
No, as I was starting to say, or as I started with earlier, is I get that Dickel kind of comes back around on the finish. I end with more of those toasted marshmallows that I got on the nose that I don't think I really get on the palate. Maybe like a chocolate covered toasted marshmallow there at the end. But a lot of that fruit note from the palate has gone away. The baking spice continues on through the palate to the finish and then kind of fades away and leaves me with that marshmallowy chocolate goodness there at the end.
It hits this peak and just kind of then slowly fades away in a good way. But the palate didn't really add anything for me.
It really doesn't. It's not a real long finish either. I mean, I'd say it's a solid medium finish. As it kind of starts to fade and then it just ends. I mean, nothing really lingers very long in it.
What are you guys getting as far as influence on the palate and the finish? Are you able to kind of pinpoint any Tennessee, Indiana, Kentucky influence on any of those?
I'd say the Dickel, like a very typical number 12 Dickel,
right,
is the most prominent that I can pick out.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it's got, like Jamie was saying, that like Dickel 12, marshmallows, and it's got some. There's a little bit of herbal there too, but I'd say that's the only thing I could really pinpoint on that.
I just noticed some kind of like fresh sawn oak on the finish, and we haven't really mentioned much of an oak or wood quality to this at any point. I know a lot of the chocolates, those sorts of things, some of the marshmallows may come from the oak influence, but on that finish, that was the first time I think I got kind of a pure oak influence, is that kind of a sharper, fresh sawn oak there at the tail, at the end of the palate, start of the finish.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, before we empty our glasses, how about we start back at the nose, and let's give some scores to this. Jamie, we'll start with you on some scores on the nose.
I'd call it a 3.5. More than satisfied. Nothing I'm gonna write home about.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that same thing. I kind of started with a 3 and thought that's not sufficient, and 4 seemed to be a little high. I think 3.5 is right on. It's very good. It's just not exceptional. Jay?
I agree. My first reaction was probably a 3. And then the longer, that we kind of nosed it, I think that it's got a nice nose on it. I'd say 3.5.
It's really opened up quite a bit since we've been sampling it. There is some more of that fresh sawn oak on the nose now.
Yeah, not a lot of old funk though. Not quite the leathers that I thought I might get out of this. Not a lot of those old notes. I'm not getting any dry tannic influence on this. We've talked about some like cocoa dusting, that sort of thing. I know that's starting to flirt on some of that dry tannic chocolate notes. But it's a younger sort of oak profile than an old funky or tannic type profile.
Yeah, you can see why they left this in the barrel for 15 years. It's not over oaked. I don't believe so, in my opinion.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, and at 105 proof, you have to assume these came from some fairly low floors at all three, presumably three, or maybe more, but Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana, but presumably came from some fairly low floors to hit that proof. So I don't anticipate a whole lot of like tannic features on it, but I think I would get a little bit more funk. I know both of you have had some older MGPs that have been lower, rickhouse floors. Are you getting any of those sorts of notes on this?
I think that dusty note I was talking about, or maybe the note where you talk about an apple being in basically in the leaves on the ground, is kind of that note that you're picking up just a little bit of rancio, but not too much. Which I mean, it's a very balanced drink.
All right, let's go in the same. Let's go Jamie, Jay, and then me on the scores for the palate.
Mm-hmm. I'll give both at once. I'd say 4, 3.5. The finish falls flat for me. Not disappointing. It's still enjoyable and it's still a great bottle, but 4, 3.5.
Yeah, I really like the palate. I don't know that I'm going to go all the way to a 4 on it personally. It is very balanced, like you're saying. Even the nose, it's balanced all the way through. I think on the palate, I'm going to be at a 3.5, and on the finish, 3.5 as well. Given the fact that it's not super complex and it's, I think, fairly short for a 15-year-old, barrel-proof bourbon.
I'm struggling with this one.
You're gonna reverse mine.
I started out wanting to. No. I started out wanting to say that I'm going to give both the palate and the finish a 4. I think they're both more than satisfying. I get a lot of that, as I talked about, that toasted marshmallow, chocolate covered marshmallow on the finish that I find really enjoyable. The fact that I'm finding really no flaws in this whatsoever. I think that's where I end up, is that 4 and the 4, but it's just barely getting there for me. I'm teetering between the 3.5 and the 3.5 as we talked about, but I think I end up at a 4 and a 4. So we'll have to do a little bit of math and averaging here to come up with a total score. But I think we're all really close. I mean, I don't think anyone's saying it's a 4 plus. Or lower than a 3.5. We're kind of, I think, all three of us fighting on that line. All right, overall scores. Jay, let's start with you on an overall score.
An overall score, I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think it's a well-balanced bourbon. Easy drinker. I mean, very, very good product. I mean, it is good, but I don't know that I could, I was 3.5 across the board. So that's my overall score for sure.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Jamie, how about you? I'm actually going to call it a 4, even if with my other scores being some of them lower than that, 3.5, 4, 3.5. I think overall 4. I wish I didn't give it to you guys so I could have a larger pour, because each sip, this one's been developing really nicely for me. As I get closer to the bottom of this glass, I'm getting a lot more of those MGP notes that I really like. I like more than Dickel. It keeps getting better. Each sip's a little bit better for me. So I think I'd call overall 4.
I think I end up at a 4 also, and I'm trying to articulate how I get there. And the best I can describe it is I still find this to be most influenced by the George Dickel profile. And I like the George Dickel profile. To me, what's happened in this is they've used some of the Kentucky and the Indiana bourbons to soften some of the harshness that you might get out of George Dickel, some of the minerality that shows up from time to time. I think it softened those and created just a very enjoyable overall pour. So I'm going to give it a 4. But for me, I would definitely say that that's highly influenced by the fact that I really like George Dickel. All right. Now the tough one. I think this is the hardest score to give right here, and that is the value score. This takes into consideration how we felt about it overall, but understanding that the price tag on this thing's coming in at 220, 225. I've seen all the way up to $250 for a price tag on this. So where are you at, Jamie? You're leading the way here on a value? Where you end up?
2.5. It is a great, enjoyable pour, but at 250, to come out of nowhere with that price for your very first limited, with I'm at.
I agree. I think 2.5. I mean, it's a great pour. It really is. But at $225 to $250, I mean, you've got a lot of options from other distilleries that are sourcing the exact, all the same juice at a third of the price, sometimes.
Is anybody check this? Is there a secondary market for this product right now? Is there a premium on a secondary market for this? Does anybody notice?
They're trading for I want to say $25 to $50 cheaper than the 2018 Stag, which is around $375, $400. Some people are doing 1-to-1s.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down to a 2 on value on this. I know. I'm struggling. Now, Jamie, you mentioned earlier that we're big fans of what's coming out of Magnus nowadays. We've had the Murray Hill as of late, which Murray Hill is a blend of some fairly old whiskeys. Maybe not quite this old, but it's also a $90 to $100 product that I find much more enjoyable than this. George T. Stagg has an MSRP of $99. I know it's hard to find at that, but it does happen from time to time. I'm sitting here with a Barrell, single barrel, 14-year George Dickel from NASA Liquor. I paid $90 for this. Every one of those I find more enjoyable than I find this Barrell 15. I just can't get there on being satisfied with the price on this. I mean, to me, this is Barrell creating another product line, slapping a new fancy label on it, and the price. I mean, they went from that night Jay talked about it earlier, that $90 maybe up to $120 price point on their products that are flirting with that almost 15 years. Now they're up to $220 just because it's a 15-year and a blended product. I don't think it's that good. I'm going to give it a 2. Any rebuttal on that one?
No rebuttal. I mean, you're talking about the pick that you have that's a 14-year. Well, there's currently a local one that's 14-year that must have been a distributor pick, and I think I've seen it less than 90 around town. So it's a big jump for them to make, to put it in a fancy box and a new bottle with a different sticker. Same bottle, different sticker.
Same bottle, different sticker. Yeah.
I know, and I know 15 years gets to that point where, what do you see coming out of MGP at 15 year at barrel strength? What do you see coming out of Kentucky at 15 years at barrel strength other than George T. Stagg? I mean, I know there's a few others out there, but it's few and far between, so it's some tough company. But to me, with the influence of that Dickel on there and what else is out there in these same price points, it just doesn't live up to that 220 price range. Good product. It's just that's a steep price tag. All right. Anybody else want to go back to the George T. Stagg and have any final observations on one versus the other?
Final observation: it's much better. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, that Stagg is just it feels in every way premium to this.
Right.
This is a good product, but that Stagg is in another class than this Barrell 15 year. I'm rambling on. I think I'm rambling on because I'm still getting the finish on the back of my tongue. I'm talking until it ends. I may not stop talking because it just keeps going.
Yeah, that's a wonderful whiskey right there. I mean, that's like you said, class. They're not even they're not even in the same time zone there.
All right, my closing observation on this one, and Jamie, I'll let you come back to you here in just a second. But this is a bottle to me that begs either go to a bar and try it, or if you can pick up a bottle at MSRP, pick up a bottle at MSRP and share it with some friends. This is a bottle share bottle. It's one of those that people are talking about right now. There's a lot of buzz around it. It's a good product. It's just a lot of money to spend for a bottle to sit on your shelf for what I think I'm getting out of it. This is one to share. Jamie, all right, you got something to say.
So here's my closing statement on that. So the big hype for the past 4 years has been very, very old bourbon. And I don't think that anybody who's tried the Rhetorics and the Forged Oaks and this 15 year, I think most people don't go into it not knowing anything, and they see a 15-year age statement and they think, oh, that's got to be amazing. And most master distillers will tell you the sweet spot's at 8 to 10 years. And I think lately I've been seeing that more and more, and all these extra age products, and I feel like a lot of them have gone down in quality as they got older. And I see that more and more, and I hope more people coming into the bourbon market, I hope they don't go out and buy Barrell Bourbon 15 year. I hope they go out and buy Evan Williams Black and start at the bottom through it so that you can do something like this. And I know I'm rambling too, but in and buying allocated bourbon, buying the very most expensive, and I don't know that they have the appreciation for it that they could if they tasted some of the younger and cheaper bottles.
Yeah, even in staying in the Barrell family, I mean, we're not talking cheap to stay in the Barrell family at $80, $90, $100, $120. But, there's some younger products that fit within the age range you're talking about here that are really quality products even coming out of Barrell. You don't have to necessarily jump up to this 220 and think that you're getting a super premium product over what they otherwise have to offer. All right, Jay, what else? Do you have anything else?
You guys took care of the rambling there, but no, I agree. I mean, I think they are really kind of working on what everybody else has done, putting a great big, number on there and putting a big price on it. And, hoping to get the people out there just getting in to, getting into bourbon and seeing it in the pretty glass case at the liquor store and, all underlit, and that's got to be the best thing out there. And like Jamie said, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there for $30, $40 that are in that 8 to 10 year age range. Kudos to them for doing it. It's obviously selling. We didn't go out and rush out and buy one, But yeah, I mean, my recommendation on it is, try some other products that are, maybe a few years less aged, to kind of work into that and not just assume that the box means it's amazing.
Right. Yeah. Box. Yeah. I saw the Barrel Craft Spirits rum with a fancy box. Did this come in a fancy box as well?
I actually do know this. So in our market, they could have shipped it all at once. They had a shortage of boxes. They said we can ship the product and you won't get the boxes, and they said we'll ship the product and we'll call it that. So in our market, I think some of the bottles did not have boxes.
Well, I think I would score this thing completely different if it came in a fancy box. So. All right, with that, gentlemen, let's sign off. I appreciate your time tonight. I appreciate everybody watching. Remember, go find the full review of this over at flightclubict.com and find our reviews of hundreds of other whiskeys out there as well. So signing off. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.